Greetings and welcome to Conflict Radio. All right. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is October 4th, 2021. We are 4 days into Red October. Well, at least that's what some people are saying anyway. I guess we'll find out exactly if it's this October or next October or in October 10 years from now. Who knows? But we are 4 days into October. I'm starting to notice the leaves fall off the trees here. Hang on a second. I gotta clear my throat. It's nice to drive down the road, and I always see the leaves. They kind of pile up in the center of the road, and at least through my neighborhood. And I'll drive through the center and try to knock all the leaves off to the side so that people can see them better. Plus, they get all wet in the center, and it doesn't look as pretty. So I like to drive down the center of the road and throw the leaves all over the place instead of just letting them sit there in the center. So today on the show, we've got a great guest. We're going to talk about psychics and intuitives and a little bit of remote viewing and all kinds of cool stuff. We've got Robert Lindsy Milne, who's going to join us today. He is a psychic intuitive counselor, teacher, healer, and life coach. He is recognized across the continent as one of the most insightful psychic intuitive counselors of his time. At a very young age, Robert started working as a psychic intuitive, doing readings at the Cosy Tea Room in Toronto, and at the same time battling serious literacy issues. He managed to overcome his disabilities and traveled the world, giving insight with his psychic intuitive sessions to tens of thousands of people. Robert, welcome to Conflict Radio. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you very much for inviting me on. I'm really excited about talking with you and to your audience.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun today, and I want to let everybody know that this isn't going to be a reading show. We're not going to do any readings or anything like that. This is a show where we're going to learn about psychics and their abilities and what, if anything, you need to do to be able to hone in on your own abilities. And I think that that's going to be pretty neat. Robert, did you know that Facebook was going to go down today?
I didn't even know that Facebook was down today. I was too busy doing psychic readings to find out for other people. So I just found out near the end of the day that Facebook was down. I didn't think about it. I'm not so focused on what the world is doing. I'm more focused on the person in front of me. And for one of the reasons for that, Michael, is that I can't do anything about world hunger. I can't make world peace. What I can do is feed the hungry person in front of me. What I can do is make peace with the guy across the street. And while I know a fair amount about the world, my focus is what's in front of me.
All right. Well, I actually, it was nice that, I actually woke up and my wife spent time with me today instead of scrolling her Facebook profile. It was actually kind of nice that
Yes.
Facebook was down. Hopefully people got to do things, like learn a language or, take a course or, do something creative, maybe go outside and ground their feet in the dirt a little bit.
Take the dog for a walk,
Yeah. Let me give a shout out here to everybody who's hanging out with us. I see Arlene Adkins is here. She says hi to Blue Chicken, Hugo Darn, Antonio, Wendy, Conflict Radio, and let's see who else is here. Antonio is in the house. Wendy Williams is here. Dr. Strangelove, Mary Kay, how you doing? Mr. John Bangle presents. David Gosling, hey David, how are you today? Blue Chicken is back. How you doing, Blue? I don't see Almost Not Human is not in the house. So Blue, the modding abilities are on you today. You picked a great time to come back. I see Distorted Reality is here. He says people still have Facebook. Yeah, I know, right? I wasn't bothered as much as that Facebook was down as much as I couldn't progress my games that I play that I have connected to Facebook. I have these stupid games on my phone that I connect to Facebook, and apparently all of my games were reset to 0. So I'm gonna have to figure out, that's another thing, and everybody. I put a lot of pictures on Facebook because that's just a good place to keep them, and I'm thinking, what if I lose all my photos? So I'm gonna have to go through and take all my photos off of there. So that's pretty neat. All right, so let's get right into it. I want to talk about intuition and psychic abilities. Is that the same thing, or can you be intuitive and not be a psychic?
Well, that's an interesting question. I can answer it in the overall much easier. Being psychic, being intuitive is a normal, natural phenomenon that just about all mammals have, not just people, but mammals in common. And has there ever been a time where you were sitting somewhere and you look up and you see that there was somebody gazing at you, or you're thinking about somebody and all of a sudden you hear from them? That's being psychic, and just about everybody can do that. And Michael, if you think about like a bell-shaped curve, can anybody be psychic? Well, think about that bell-shaped curve. There's probably one person at one end that has absolutely zero awareness. And then at the other end, the far end, there's somebody that's got 100% awareness. And then the rest of us fit in between. It's a natural, instinctive ability. It's one that, and in order to become psychic, now, I'm not talking about talking to spirits. I'm not talking about anything other than pure, raw psychism. And it is something that's natural. And what I tell people is, become aware of what's obvious, and then more becomes obvious. That's the foundation. So there's not a lot of difference between, the only difference between being intuitive and being psychic are the way it's spelled. Other than that, it's the same action. And when you try to define something like that, I'm a clairsentient, I'm a clairvoyant, I am an empath, I am this. All that it does is confuse you and keep you away from really getting in touch with your instinct and your pure talent.
All right. So, but there is a difference though between intuition and psychic, right? Like, I mean,
no, yeah, intuition is spelled one way, being psychic is another, but it's the same action. It's the same part of the brain that responds.
oh, okay. Well, that's pretty interesting because
yes.
My wife, she's very intuitive, and sometimes she'll have visions of things that'll happen, and like a day or two later, those things will actually happen. But she doesn't consider herself a psychic. She considers herself just, intuitive.
They're one and the same.
All right. Well, I'll let her know.
So, yeah, it's one and the same, and it's whatever you want to call it. It comes from the same place, and it's expressed the same way. Some people want to call it intuition, others want to call it being psychic. There's many, many other words. I've always been mostly interested in doing it.
All right. So how are you able to focus in on a certain topic or a person? See, when she has these intuitive visions, they kind of it just happens. You know what I mean? Like out of the blue. So how do you focus? And I guess that's where we're gonna go eventually with the show. How do you actually focus in on a certain subject? Out of the blue.
Okay. So today, after being a professional psychic for 56 years and doing a little more than 100,000 psychic connections over my career, it is something that happens quite easily. And I don't use a medium as in cards or palm or crystal ball. When somebody comes to me for a reading, they sit down in front of me. I ask them two questions. How old are you? What month is your next birthday? And then I just turn on the recording and I start to talk to them about them. And I ask people when I'm speaking, when I'm doing their reading, please don't interrupt, even if you think I've made a mistake, because I'm constantly looking at what I've already said and correcting any errors that I've made. And I do in my own personal readings. They're about an hour long. It's a monologue like that. And then there's a question period after, and the person can ask any. Usually their questions are answered at that point. How do I do it? Well, I simply allow whatever is coming into my mind at that time, and I just simply start talking about it. And now I have a way that I start each reading. I start off with saying, this is Monday, October 4th, 2021. The reason I say that is because when I do a reading for somebody, I often see their life from conception to completion. Now, and I don't see like the specific details, like a vision of how they got conceived or how they die. I feel the energy lines. So I can sense that. And throughout someone's reading, I'm going forward and backwards in their life, looking at where they're at. And I also look at where they are at right now. I can go to say someone's 80 years old. I go to when they're 80 years old, I will tell them when they're 35 how they feel about themselves and what they've done with their life. And I will do it that way. Then I'll come back to the present and talk about that. So I see someone's life from in the overall. And I just simply let what comes into my mind. I say what comes into my mind, and anyway, that's how I do it.
So, are you accessing the Akashic records then?
I'm tuning into me, and I'm saying what comes into my mind.
Oh, all right.
I over my lifetime, I haven't been all that concerned about putting labels on things. What I've really been concerned about is taking care of what's going on with the person in front of me. Now, I myself am psychologically minded. Like I really dig behavior. Like I'm really into that. And I've been fascinated by the way people react and think and feel. That's my thing. And it's like my study. And what I simply do is tune into that person's energy and talk to them about them. I don't worry about whether I'm tuning into the Akashic records. I don't worry about what I'm really tuning into. I know it's positive, of course. I'm just taking care of their needs in that moment.
Have you ever had a reading where you were picking up and getting things in your mind that had absolutely nothing to do with that person whatsoever, like maybe something else was taking precedence?
You mean like something else was affecting me or affecting the other person, like implying that they would have a curse on them or something? Is that what you were meaning? Is that? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, that's I suppose that could be another question. I mean, like, you're sitting down with somebody, and instead of picking up anything that has to do with them, you're picking up something that maybe has to do with the person that's waiting for them out in the car or something.
Yes. That could be so. However, the reading that when I do a reading for somebody, it's about them. It's for them, and it's and if I'm going to be talking about somebody else, I'm talking about that somebody else as it affects that person in front of me. So if I were doing a reading for, say, a woman who was being abused by her husband, the guy brought her there, he was sitting out in the car, and he didn't like the fact that she was getting a reading, I'd sense that. I would sense those kinds of things.
Okay.
The other thing about me tuning into people, I'm a very private and boundary conscious human being. I'm really conscious of that. So I don't tune into somebody unless I have permission. And if I see something for somebody when I'm not doing a reading, or if I pick up stuff, I do my best just to ignore it. Someone has to give me permission.
All right. So, all right. So you mentioned curses and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you pick up on that kind of thing? Like, do people have curses on them?
I don't think that's the case. I was just asking if you were asking that question because I wasn't quite sure what you did, what you were asking when you said, "Am I picking up on stuff that's not related to the person in front of me?" That's what the whole reading is about. Michael, think about this. You go to see somebody. You sit down in a comfortable chair, and you get met at the door with three champion golden retrievers, and the dogs will escort you to that lovely chair. And I sit down in front of you, and we have a short conversation. How are you today? Was it hot? Blah, blah, blah. Then I get the two questions: how old are you? What month is your next birthday? And then that person spends the next hour, and all they talk about and think about and focus on is you and your life. And it's a whole focus on the being you are, what you can expect, what you've been through, what other possibilities, things like that. That's the type of service that I do.
Okay, so you don't pick up on anything evil or curse related.
If there is something that's dangerous for someone, if there is someone who is evil around them, I certainly would, of course, be able to pick up on it. I don't believe that you can curse somebody. I believe that you can send the energy, that mean, hostile energy towards somebody. But I also believe they have to accept it. Even if they accept it on an unconscious level. And I further believe when they realize that what is going on, they also can reject it. Although I haven't spent very much time in that area. My work has been dealing with people whose lives are in crises, that need help, that need guidance, that need focus. That's where I am at. There have been a couple of times, maybe more than that, where someone perhaps had some spiritual problems like that. I knew and know of a few people that deal with that part. I would refer them to it. It's not the area I work in. I work more so in healing rather than releasing people from evil stuff. I'm sure that's a way of healing. It's just not the way I do it.
All right. Let me thank Dr. Strangelove so much for the super chat, $15. Really do appreciate it, man. That's awesome. And want to give a shout out, man. We don't get many super chats on this channel, man. That's awesome. Thanks so much. And
Michael,
yeah,
where am I supposed to be getting the chat line? Is it on is
the link I sent you earlier in the
for YouTube?
Yeah,
at YouTube. Oh, okay. So let me just I've just never done this one before.
Yeah, just make sure that you have the sound muted, or we'll pick up the delay and echo and stuff. Like the sound on the YouTube video.
Yeah, just going.
Yeah. All right. So let me I guess ask this question. Let's see. It was put in here. I want to let everybody know that the last half hour of the show, in about 40 minutes, we'll do questions. But I did see. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just looking at some questions that I was looking at. I was getting into responding to them.
Yeah. Let's do that. The last half hour of the show, everyone. Just so
okay.
I'm trying to get my cat off the desk here. Distorted Reality did ask a good question, but guys, hold on to your questions until the last 30 minutes if we can, because it does kind of throw throw us off track, but he wants to know, did you ever do a reading that scared the living crap out of you and that you had to stop and refuse to go forward with?
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, and again, answering that question, I've been doing this for full time for my living. By the time when I was about 15 and a half years old, and I've worked at this full time. I'm 72 now, so it'll be 56 years in January that this has been my living, and so I've come across. I can't say I've experienced everything, because when you say something like that, look out, something more happens. But I've seen a huge amount, and most concepts I've experienced, and so there have been times where I really did see evil and meanness and harshness in someone. Now, when I'm tuning into somebody, even the nicest person you ever want to meet, when they're feeling rage inside, I will feel that too. And there will be no difference than that rage than in the rage of somebody you might call evil. It's that same intensity. There's the same look. Years ago, I was at this spiritual retreat. Well, it was a long, long time ago, and we all slept on the floor and in sleeping bags and stuff, and it was in the late spring, early summer, and anyway, we'd all been meditating and we'd be, spirit, focusing on all the beautiful things and peace, love, and whatever, and this one lady, who was a pretty spiritual woman, she was noticing there were some ants walking around on the floor near her sleeping bag. And she took a shoe out and started hitting the ants. When I stood back and looked at her face, she had the exact same angry look that you would see in somebody that wants to punch you in the face. There's that same sense of anger. We all have it.
All right, Jersey Dolphins, thanks so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it, and I'm gonna have to move on from that. Thanks so much, Jersey Dolphins. Been with us since the very beginning. So how did you know you were a psychic? What was your first experience? Do you remember?
Oh, yes. Now, when did I know that I was a psychic, or when was I doing it and then realized I'd been doing it? Because I was 5 or 6 years old. I came home from school for lunch. It was either kindergarten or grade 1. It was like 1955 or 1956. And I said to my mother, Grandma Harris died today. Well, Grandma Harris was my great-grandmother, and she was in London, England, and I was living in Toronto, and I'd only seen her once. So I said to her, Grandma Harris died today. My mother got really upset, yelled at me, hit me, and said, stop saying those terrible, bad things. The next night at dinner, my mother, my father, and my sister and I, we were all at the table. My mother said to my father, Grandma Harris died yesterday. It took a long time in those days for news to travel across the Atlantic. So my mother says, Grandma Harris died today. I thought my father was going to get mad and yell and hit my mother for saying something bad. To my astonishment, they talked about it. And that really blew my mind. And throughout early times in my life, Uncle Harold, that wasn't Aunt Sally. Who was that? That one got me hit for sure. So I would be saying things to people, and I didn't know why, but I was getting into trouble.
All right.
All right. Now I'm going to tell you how I found out I was psychic, if you want.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was nine and a half. My father took me to a Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup hockey game. It was the semifinals. Boston and Toronto were playing. The game was tied 1-1 when they went to the third period. And by the way, the series was tied 1-1. The teams went off the ice, to have a rest. And when they came back on, just for the first overtime period, I knew number 17 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Gary Eman, I knew he was going to score. The game hadn't even started. As it got closer to the game getting started, it became more and more real to me. So imagine in this building, 18,000 people. The lights are turning down. The teams, the guys, the teams have gone to the bench and the starting lineup is there. By the way, Gary Eman wasn't on the ice at the time. And the referee is just to drop the puck, just ready to. The whole building silent, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. And I jumped up and started to yell and scream and cheer because I knew that Gary Eman was going to score or just did score. And the entire building looked at me and my dad. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Sit down." And I did. Anyway, the referee dropped the puck. The game started. A couple of minutes later, Eamon jumps over the boards and a guy named Red Kelly passes the puck to him and Eamon tips it in the net. And the building goes crazy. People yelling, screaming, cheering. And I just looked around the building and I said, I am different. I think differently. And that's when I knew what was going on. It was also, I knew what I was going to do with my life.
All right. So
that's the story.
So do you think that it's a spiritual thing? I guess a godly thing to have this? You think it's a godly gift? Jersey Dolphins points out the Bible says a lot of us are gifted with this. It says to keep it hidden unless God contacts us and tell us to prophesize his message.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's what Jersey says.
I guess I'm in trouble then because I don't think I got permission, but it was there.
Do you believe in religion?
Not very much.
Okay.
So when I say, do I believe in religion? Do I believe in God? Absolutely. Do I believe there are great teachers and messiahs on the planet? Absolutely. I believe in that. I don't necessarily believe what someone says because it's written in a book. I don't always believe stuff like that. And although they may have very strong and powerful beliefs, until it's all over, until we've completed our life, nobody really knows for sure. You can believe, but nobody really knows for sure. So being psychic is a natural, normal instinct that we all have. Some people who do this work have a tendency to be more spiritual. However, one of the things that is worthwhile to consider, when we think of being spiritual, we often think of being good. Okay, so, I'm spiritual, I'm good. Well, hang on. There are also, in our universe, in the universe we live in, there's what is positive, the opposite negative has to be. It cannot be in any other way. So what we are one way, we are equally the opposite. That is how it is. So now in the spirit world, there are good spirits, there are bad spirits. There was a fella by the name of Anton LaVey back, I think, now I don't know a whole lot about him. It wasn't what I was into. Anton LaVey was a Satanist, a Satan worshiper, and he wrote the book. He started the Satanic Church of California. I believe that was the one, and he wrote the book, the Satanist Bible. Now there was a guy that was spiritual, but certainly not spiritual in the way I want to be or be around. So there is positive spiritual, there's negative spiritual, and it's worthwhile to just remember that. Although people that are spiritual lean towards doing things like this, being psychic, it's not absolutely necessary to be spiritual.
All right. Have you ever picked up on anything that was, I guess, could be considered a prophecy?
You mean telling the future?
Yeah, for like
That's my job. I do that.
no, I mean for like the whole Earth, though, for all of us as a combined consciousness, as a combined prophecy, not just a specific person, but everybody.
Michael, I'm a healer. I help people get over their issues. As I said earlier, I can't change the world. Well, what I can do is help the person that's just right in front of me, and that's been my life's purpose. So other people can look at things on grand levels. I just help the person that needs it right now, and then I help the next person. That's how I deal with the masses.
All right.
Not everybody can be, a worldwide seer. Mine is tuning into and giving service to the person right there, or the animal.
All right. Do you? I guess.
Yes.
Jersey Dolphins. I'm not going to ask that question. Let me ask you this: have you ever done a reading on somebody where you were like, hey, you shouldn't get in a car tomorrow, or you shouldn't?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like because you saw they were going to be in a bad wreck or something.
Well, okay. So let me see. Friday I did it for my best friend. Okay. He was going away on a trip. He was going to be riding his bike. And I told him not to do it. And he listened, and it was the right choice. So instead of taking the bike, I suggested you take the car. Of course, I see those things. I do see bad things, and let me just put my glasses on here. So I was looking at someone who had written, and that really, as soon as I logged on to, let's see, where is she? She asked, she asked about, or her comment was, she knew this psychic that absolutely refused to tell people bad or negative things. Well, I see it's my moral obligation to tell people what I see. Now, I also believe that what can be seen can be changed. Usually destiny, right? So usually destiny cannot be seen because it's destiny. Because if it can be seen, it can be changed. So it's my moral obligation to tell the person in front of me that, hey, there's this problem coming up. It's not what you tell the person, it's how you say it. So if I were going to tell you something bad is going to happen, what I would do is I would tell you something good that would happen after it. And then I would come back to the present and then give the warning. That's how I would do it. Now I have to tell you a funny story on that one. I hate telling somebody, someone in danger, a funny story. So years and years ago, I used to, I was the very first psychic in Canada that appeared on radio and TV shows. I was the first one that started touring, and I was also the first one to tour around the world. A friend of mine from South Africa flew. I was in Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta at the time. He flew over to experience time in what Canada was like. And I had shows in Edmonton and Calgary, and then we were going to go into the mountains and drive around, and he was going to see the Rocky Mountains. On the way driving from Edmonton to Calgary, which is 250 miles, he decided that he didn't want to stay in Calgary and wait around for me to do the radio show and readings. He decided he wanted to go into the mountains, and he'd come back and pick me up when I was finished doing the readings or that show and the readings. And as we were getting closer to the hotel where I was checking into, I said to him, Clive, I really don't think that's a good idea. Why don't you wait? It's only going to be a couple of days. I know some of the girls at the radio station, like, just be cool. We'll be going out every night. It's going to be great. And he said, no, I've come all this way. I'm afraid to miss anything. And I said, really? I really think you should stay. He said, I just got to do it. And so I drove him to the Hertz rent-a-car, and he's filling out the forms. And I'm saying, Clive, I really don't think you should do this. You should be waiting. And he gets to, and he's filling out the form, and he gets to the insurance part. And I said, choose the most amount. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, just the most amount, where you could just walk away. And he said, okay. And he did. Anyway, so as he was getting into the car, I said to him, Clive, please don't go. Well, he went. He left. So what happened? In the middle of the night, the next night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on my hotel room door, my hotel room door. And I said, who is it? And he said, you know who it is, open the bloody door. And I opened the door, and his face was all smashed up, and it was burned by and I said, what happened to you? And he said, I was in a head-on collision on the Trans-Canada Highway. And he said, and if I hadn't have been in that head-on collision, I would have gone over the edge and fell like about 1,000 feet.
So he obviously swerved over into the other lane, headed towards the cliff.
He fell asleep in the car.
Yeah, instead of going off the cliff, just happened to be another car there.
He fell asleep.
Well, let me ask you this. Arlene says, I could see things early on in life, but my mom squashed it hard and fast. It terrified me into suppressing it. But over the years, since I've been alone, it's coming back. Now, good. I would imagine that you hear a lot of things like that. I know some people who had early intuition in life, and their mother quickly ran them down to the church to be exorcised. You know what I mean? And totally scared the crap out of the kid. And
yes, I've had. You know what I mean? I've had. Yes, I do. I've had in the earlier days when I was appearing on shows and TV shows and radio shows in the mainstream media, I would have Christian groups protest outside the radio station. And there were on several different occasions where I would put on a live psychic performance, like we rent a hall in a hotel or something and advertise, and people would come to see me. The Christian groups would stand at the back of the room and shout over me to the point that I couldn't be heard, and things like that. So yes, I understand that. So what was that woman's name again, Michael?
Arlene.
Arlene, I am so deeply sorry that you've been hurt the way you've been hurt. And I'm really sorry that you were taught to restrict what something is natural and normal for us human beings. If you just get in touch with your feelings, if you tell yourself you're safe, because nobody will be doing to you what has been done, it won't happen again. Let your feelings come out. Identify them. Allow your mind to expand. Allow your heart to open. Well, that's another thing's going to be happening for you, sweetie. Your heart's going to be opening a bit, and you're going to be finding that that you're going to be opening up and connecting with, allowing people to be closer to you, but a 90% chance of you finding a very powerful and really healthy love again. Anyway, I'm sorry you were hurt so much. Good luck, Arlene. So there's an example of me helping the person in front of me. When I see someone hurt, or when I sense somebody's hurt, I connect to them and I help them. Now, I make my living doing that as my job. I sit down, I do psychic readings, and I sit down and I talk about that person's life. But everywhere I go, my radar is up. And if I see someone's hurting, my instinct is to help that person right there. And this was an example, and it just happened with Arlene. I kept saying, Robert, you're not supposed to read. Stop it. And I could. That's why I stuttered and stopped for a moment while I was connecting to when I was telling her that.
It just comes to you, doesn't
it? What happens is I see the hurt. I feel it, and I also see it can end, and I show them they can't. That's what happens.
All right.
Sometimes, it's not safe for me to go out alone. I need someone to look after me when I go out. That's a joke.
So if somebody has been suppressed, if somebody has a gift and they're being suppressed, or they've been suppressed in the past, and they're just now trying to reconnect with their true self and who they were supposed to be, what advice could you give them to, could they maybe eat healthier things or do anything different, other than just I guess just open up your heart, right?
Well, that's right, Michael. You don't have to eat different things. You don't have to meditate, although it's good to meditate. You don't have to eat specific foods unless you're really into those specific foods. You don't have to drink concoctions. You don't have to stand on your head. You don't have to do any of those things. All you need to do is get in touch with that inner part of you, that part that makes you a mammal. Follow that intuition, that psychic ability. It starts off with just feeling something and following it. That's how it starts. So get in touch with you. The safer you are, the easier it'll be.
Okay. Now, is it possible for somebody to hold a person down, to suppress them, and like say for instance, I have a kid and I see that they're getting into things that could I use energy or will or something to suppress that in them? Could somebody
I'm sorry,
else,
Michael, suppress what in them again? Your child?
Like their abilities, say their psychic abilities. Could I consciously suppress those psychic abilities of another person? Is that possible?
What you could do is scare the living shit out of somebody so that they wouldn't be able to get to that part of them, which would be torture or the equivalent of beating them up. That's what you could do. And you could scare them so much, you could cause them to be shut down in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And getting in touch with intuition, that would be called abuse.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that that's what I'm doing. I'm
and
just trying
to. That's not what I was saying you were.
I'm just trying to make an example.
Yeah, but that was the answer. And
I hear you. And
in my heart, I know you wouldn't do that.
It would work the same way. Like if somebody had a kid and you were scaring them with demons and Satan and how evil it was and that sort of thing. If they're 6, if you were 5 or 6 years old when you first started figuring out what you were doing and somebody was throwing at you that you're possessed by a demon, I would imagine that would have, traumatized you as a child.
Fortunately, my strain of the family, they weren't particularly religious, so I didn't get beat up that way. I got humiliated. I got put down. I got mocked. I got called a whole lot of other names, but they weren't around religion, though.
All right.
fraud, charlatan. You know, my father, he just died in August this year, August 13th, actually. He was 92. My father worked full time right up until March of 2020. And then we went into lockdown, and that was the first time. So he was 91 when he stopped working because of the pandemic. He never went back to work again, and he just sort of faded away during that time. My father has said that I'm the only guy he's met that's never had a job. He said that he'll believe his only son's a fraud and a charlatan, and it hurt me deeply until I got to the point where I wasn't seeking his approval. And I also got to the point when I thought, hey, wait a sec. How can I be resentful of this person thinking that what I'm doing is fraudulent or wrong when how could I judge that person? I would think of how could I judge a blind person not being able to describe the color blue? How could I judge them harshly? So that father, my father, and people who think along those lines, arguing with them or trying to show them something is the same as trying to describe the color blue to a blind person. They just can't see it. Then leave it alone.
All right. Is it normal for psychics to talk to ghosts or spirits?
There are a lot of people that do that. I'm not particularly focused that much on being a channeler. However, I really haven't worried about what technique I was using. I was always interested in helping the person. Now, there was one time I was doing a reading for someone, and they'd been a client of mine for like 20 years or 25 years, and he was introduced. He was introduced to me by his mother-in-law, and they called her grandma, and she was the first one of the family that was having readings from me. Flip forward many years into the future, and this client was building this brand new house in a very, very beautiful special in-law suite for grandma to move into. Grandma had her own house, by the way. Mm-hmm. So grandma was getting older, and anyway, this man came to me and for his regular reading, and he told me that what his plans were, and I said to him, you better confirm your plans with grandma. She might have different ideas. And what I had seen is grandma, and by the way, I called her that because that's the way she treated everybody. Grandma was starting to give things away, her cherished things, to different people. And I realized that grandma was preparing to die, that she was preparing to let go. I started to tell this guy what was going on. And when I was saying those words to that person, I absolutely believed what I was telling him was right, and it was the absolute right thing to say, because I knew it was right. So I gave him the information gently, kindly, but I let him know that grandma probably wasn't going to move into that house. And he got really upset, and et cetera. But in that moment, when I was doing my job, I knew what I said was right. And I had a very clear conscience. I thought about it throughout the rest of the day. I'd done a few other readings. I thought about it through the rest of the day. And in the middle of the night, I woke up just from a deep sleep. And from that deep sleep, it went, Robert, how bloody dare you say such a thing to that man and tell him how dare you do that? What's the matter with you? And I was shocked that I would have allowed myself to take that kind of risk, to tell him somebody was going to die. It really upset me.
All right.
Let me finish the story, please. I'm just at the final point. I asked my best friend, I told him about it, what I had experienced. And he said, Robert, I haven't wanted to say this to you, but I've always believed it. I always thought you were channeling, and now I know for sure. And when you were giving that man that information, you were channeling that energy. It was your unconscious mind that challenged you in the middle of the night and woke you up. And I went, yes, that's right. Okay, yeah, I challenge. I channel. So the answer is yes.
All right. So when you die, your spirit can move on and you can talk to other psychics, pretty much.
You can talk. So I believe that there is, I believe in reincarnation. I believe that, I'll make it personal. So I believe that I am part of a huge soul. Robert Lindsy Milne. So I am not my soul. I am a part of my soul, but I am not my soul. It's like this is my fingernail. It's a part of me. It is not me. So this physical body, Robert Lindsy Milne, is a part of a big soul. So when this physical body, Robert Lindsy Milne, dies, when it's all over and the parade's done, the essence will go back to the maker, the spiritual, that spiritual pod, and that energy of Robert Lindsy Milne will be that energy, that awareness will all be combined with that knowledge, and then another incarnation will be created.
All right. So what's the difference between being psychic and being a remote viewer?
Not a whole lot. It's done in different ways. So I haven't actually worked as a remote viewer. So Michelle Fried is a brilliant remote viewer. Well, she's brilliant at a lot of things. And she has this format in how remote viewing is done. And it is an impressive discipline, and it's structured. I've never worked with a structure. Now, what I can do is I can find something. A friend of mine called me the other day and said, Robert, I can't find my keys. Where are they? And I said, okay, John, where did you see them last? He told me, and I said, okay, actually, they're in your car, between the console and your chair. And he said, well, I looked there. And I said, well, look again. Anyway, he found them, and I saw them there. Is that remote viewing? Yeah. How I got there was different than what remote viewers do. There are times where I will, I haven't done this for a fairly long time because I haven't done call-in shows for a pretty long time. But often I would when someone would call in, I would describe the inside of their room, or I'd say, okay, so you're in the living room. If you turn your head to the left, are you looking out the front window? Yeah. Okay. So if you look above that window, is the wall chipped there? And so yeah. Okay. So I would see things like that. Am I a remote viewer? Well, yeah, I guess. Do I do it that way? No, I just do it when I need it.
All right. So it's kind of the same end result, just a different process.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. And almost all of us are capable of doing that. Now, over the last several years of my life, I've become more conscious of evolving, growing on spiritual levels. It wasn't as important to me earlier, and there even was a time in my life when I was younger, I didn't believe in God. Didn't and I believed that everything that I was doing was coming from me. And I didn't believe I was being helped by spirits or God or angels or anything, because in that time I believed that when you die, that was it, end of parade. And since then I've changed my opinion. It took a fairly long time. Do you want me to tell you why I didn't believe in God?
Sure.
Why? Unless you have another question. Okay, so
well, I mean, I do, but you can wait a second.
Okay. So I didn't believe in God for a really important reason. The work that I was doing, even as a child, was giving, was being kind, helping, healing, telling people about what their life would be, where they would go. Can you imagine a 15-and-a-half-year-old kid? And by the way, that's how I got off the street, by working at a tea room. I was homeless at 15, and I got off the street and started working in the tea room, doing psychic readings. I thought that the work that I was doing, telling the future and giving that kind of guidance, would mean that I was doing, I could be like, in the old days, I would have been called a prophet. And if I were that, I would be doing God's work. Oh no, I am not worthy enough to do that. So I renounced God because I didn't believe that I was worthy to do that. That was my inner struggle.
All right. Let me ask you this: have you ever conducted a session with somebody who's been abducted by UFOs or aliens?
3 or 4 different people, yes. They're quite traumatized, and they really believe what happened to them, and yes, they really believe it. They really lived it. They really experienced it.
Can you see that? Can you see that they're?
Well,
can
I
you
can
see if
feel it.
somebody's telling the truth or not?
Yes,
I mean, you can feel their energy, whether they.
that's
I
correct.
mean, you're
Absolutely.
saying that you believe them. You believe that they believe that this happened, right? Not
Yes.
necessarily that it actually happened.
I've never seen a UFO. The only alien I've ever saw was ET. I haven't been looking up to the heavens. I've been looking at taking care of who the person is in front of me. There's got to be something else besides this world. There's got to be another planet somewhere that has life. I in no way question it. I haven't experienced it. It hasn't been in my great realm of interest. More than likely, we've been visited. And when anybody I've ever met that has been legitimately abducted, they really believed it and live it, and it's real. I myself haven't seen it or experienced it, only through people that have been, had the hell scared out of them, and it's real for them.
Yeah, it's real for them. There's no way for you to tell if they actually experience what they're experiencing.
Well, they believe it.
Yeah,
so
they believe it,
right.
But
so it's there.
Yeah.
And most of the time it's right. They're right. I believe that.
Okay. All right.
But I can't do anything about that one.
All right. So everybody, we are on the last portion of the show. So if anybody has any questions, please put it in caps or put question in caps. Don't get frustrated if I skip over it. Just try to repeat it or or tell me to scroll back up or something. It's hard to, I guess it's hard to keep the thing perfectly in line. Sometimes it'll shoot all the way down to the bottom, and I have to scroll up to try to find my place. So don't get upset if I skip you. I'm not doing it on purpose. Well, unless it's a crappy question. But before we get into their questions, let me ask you one more.
Please. Sure.
I guess, a lot of people look at astrology and, like I'm a Gemini. So, a lot of people might look at the paper. I guess they don't have papers anymore, but look online or look on their news feed on Facebook or whatever to whatever their astrology thing is for that day. Is that a real thing? Is that a believable, I guess, thing, or is that just somebody having fun?
Okay,
Is that just a fun thing, or is that a real thing?
I personally believe that it is a real thing. Now, astrology, and you said, did you say that you were a Gemini just now, or
Yeah,
is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are 12 signs in the zodiac. Those 12 signs are what's called your sun sign. So now understand, I'm not an astrologer. I know a few, and I, in my work, never have used a medium. I just tune in. So, in fact, on my podcast, it's being on my next podcast being released on Wednesday. My guest in one segment is a Grand Master astrologist, Robin Armstrong. So, but I know the concepts. So there are 12 signs, and that's your sun sign. So that is where the sun is in the heavens at the time of your birth. So I was born in July 13th. So I'm a Cancerian as a sun sign. However, there are many other aspects besides just your sun sign. There's your ascendant. There is there is your the effects of all the different solar systems, as that's not it. All the different place solar systems, and there it'll come to me, and it also. So it's very intricate, and it is a science measuring the stars and how they were when you were born and how they are as your life goes on, and it's quite complex. And it takes a lot of study. Now, there are those that do it in a scientific, logical, analytical way. Then there are those that have a little bit of information about astrology and use that as something to tune in and use that as it. So they can use the astrology, but use intuition or psychic ability to express it as well.
Okay. Let's see here. So Heather Gillette, MUA, wants to know, Michael, can you please ask him if it's possible to reawaken your psychic ability after it's been dormant? I used to be able to see spirits, and now I can't, but have strong intuition.
What is her name, Michael?
Heather Gillette.
Oh, thank you, Heather. That's a really great question. I'm just looking at that. Yes, indeed. You can always get in touch with your feelings. You can always get in touch with your instincts. You always can get in touch with you. When you were a child, or when you were younger, it was these things came to you naturally and normally. You deliberately turned them off and restricted them. So it does get a bit more complicated. All you really need to do, though, is imagine you're seeing spirits, because you do that anyway. If you imagine you're seeing spirits, ask them to be clearer and bring them to you closer.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, you can get back in touch, and you always can be in touch.
All right. Awesome. Antonio wants to know, can you distinguish between a premonition and just a dream?
Interesting question. So, a premonition and a dream well, I guess if you have a precognitive dream and it comes true, you could call that a premonition. If it doesn't come true, it wasn't a premonition, I guess. See, this is when it gets all screwed up with. I'm sorry, I'm not putting you down, Antonio. Anthony, I'm not. So this is what happens when we start getting so focused on. I'm a clairsentient. I'm a clairaudient. I'm an empath. I'm a channeler. When you start trying to put words on it, all you do is mess your head up, and stops you and prevents you from being in touch. Just do it.
All right. Heather has a follow-up question here. She wants to know also, is there a difference between remote viewing and astral travel?
Whoa. Having never... Well, okay, yeah, I have had out-of-body experiences. Have I ever commanded myself to astral travel? No, I haven't done that where I projected myself or my inner essence. But when I do radio or TV phone-in shows, and somebody's in Australia, no, that doesn't even. So what I do in that is I don't project myself to Australia. What I do is I tune into myself, and get in touch with the universe through me going inward rather than going outward. I don't think remote viewing is astral travel, but having said that, I've never really remote viewed the way the real dynamic guys do, people do.
Yeah, that might be a question for Michelle Freed when we get her on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Matney Whitger has a question here, and it might be out of the realm of what you're willing to discuss, but he wants to know, should my wife continue with starting a school or try to find a job outside the home?
The answer to that is yes. And I'm really not being a jerk about that when I say the answer is yes. She should do both. Number one, what she'll need to do, continue with starting a school or try to find a job outside the home. The answer is you're going to be doing both. You will do some homeschooling, and you will be doing lectures or talks or speaking and helping some people write or things like that outside of the house. But both will be teaching.
All right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If your wife, Matney, is trying to start a school, I would imagine a daycare or even some type of homeschool, I would say go and try to do that, because a lot of people are trying to look for alternatives to educating their kids in their local public schools with all the mandates on everything. And I think that that's a great idea. I think that she should probably continue to try to do that. That's my opinion as well. All right.
Sounds like a really good one.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think that there should be a lot of people out there that are thinking of perhaps starting their own schools, because we've got to, I mean, that's how we've got to get away from this public education and the government controlled education. I think that that's a great idea. So good luck to you with that. All right, so
this is fun. I like this.
Yeah, Hugo Darn says, I can astro travel, but I always hit the dome. He might be joking, but what would you say about the flat Earth debate? Do you have any ideas on that? Are we on a flat Earth dome or?
I myself think that the Earth is round. I don't have any evidence. I have the same evidence as whoever is saying that he thinks it's flat, a flat dome. I have the same amount of evidence that he does that it's round as opposed to it's not. I believe this. He believes that. I don't know any different.
All right, guys. So it looks like I'm all caught up in your questions. If anybody has any more questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I guess there's not too many people in here today.
So one of the things about debating religion or beliefs, is that beliefs aren't necessarily based on logic, or can be proven in a test tube, as it were. So what we believe and what is the reality, it can be different. What I think happens after we die, somebody else may have a different opinion. We're not going to know until we die. So beliefs are what comes from what's inside. They're not necessarily provable, and they're not necessarily right. They're also not necessarily wrong. You just can't prove them right or wrong.
All right. Sapphire Elf says the donut Earth is the true Earth. It's round, flat,
Okay.
and hollow. It solves everybody's problems.
Okay. Okay.
I had to say that.
Does it have a certain flavor to it? Is like, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. I'd like the cherry ones myself.
Take a bite of that mud
Absolutely.
pie and see how it tastes, I suppose.
That's right.
Sheila Reynolds wants to know, what is it called when someone sits and talks to me at night, but I can't remember their face? I'm awake when this happens.
In your house?
I would imagine in bed. Yeah.
Wow. I'd like to hear from her. So, okay. So, what is it called? So, if you don't want that, what that's called is being interfered with or abused. What I'm awake when this happens. What you can do is that you can command that energy to leave your space. One way to do that, I got to do this really quickly. One way to do that, Sheila, is put yourself in a light meditative position, state of mind, light altered state. When you've done that, you don't have to take a long time to do it. Just chill down. Visualize a speck of dazzling pure white light right inside your solar plexus. Every time you inhale, that dazzling pure white light gets bigger, and every time you exhale, that dazzling pure white light gets purer. I'm speeding it up for us all. As you continue to breathe, it gets bigger, exhale gets purer. Eventually what happens, it fills your entire chest cavity. You keep on doing that, and then eventually, instead of that dazzling white light that started inside you, eventually you are completely encapsulated in this dazzling pure white light. That'll clean your aura, that'll clean out any negative energy around you, and it will keep you safe from any boogeyman's coming to get you. I'm not being a jerk when I say boogeyman's. You're being intruded upon, and tell them to stop. Or you can also put that white light around you and or from inside you to the outside, and what you can say is, only those of good will may enter.
All right. What if it's something? What if it's a presence though that she enjoys? What if she enjoys?
Well then tell them to come back and be clearer and give more information.
All right. Sapphire Elf. I guess. Let's see here. I just lost it. See, that's what happens. Sometimes it does that to me. Sapphire Elf says, can psychic abilities be focused or attuned or boosted by using magical focus objects or devices? And if so, what kind of focus devices have you heard of?
Well, the focus devices also could be called tarot cards, could be called tea leaves, could be called a crystal ball, could be called bones, could be called palmistry. It could be called any of the mediums. And that is exactly what the mediums are for, to focus on being clearer. So yes, indeed, we can do that. Now, I myself have never really used a medium. I've always just, let it all come out like that. And it's a discipline. I've never used a medium full time, but I have a crystal ball. I have tarot cards, have a magic wand. I don't necessarily use them in my work.
Okay.
So yes, that's called a medium. It's called a way of focusing. So yes, indeed.
All right. Sheila Reynolds came back with an answer.
Love it.
She says I can see what
Yeah.
they are wearing, but never their face. And then Heather Gillette said she had the same problem. She can see them, but she can't remember what they talk about.
So at that point, there's a really good chance that you're dreaming that you're awake. What you might want to say before you go to sleep, before you go to bed at night, tell yourself to remember the words.
All right. Let's see here. Heather Gillette says, on a personal note, can you please tell me if I was abducted? My sister and I have a visitation. We can't remember what happened after the people or beings came into the room.
What's being demonstrated more intensely than with, who am I speaking to? Heather?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The one actually that was affected the most was Heather's sister. I'm not sure if it's because Heather's her sister stood in front of her or something, but one of them protected the other. There actually was 2 visitations, and you made it out into like a shuttlecraft.
All right. Sapphire Elf says, I have a lot of juju stuff I believe focuses on my spiritual energies in certain aspects, so kind of wanted to ask about focuses.
I'm not quite sure what that. Can you read that again for me?
He was asking the question about the devices.
In certain aspects. I have a lot of juju stuff. I believe focuses my. Yes, in fact they do. Has he seen The Man Who Stares? No, I haven't. Haven't seen that one. So getting back to the other guy. I have a lot of juju stuff. Does that mean you have a lot of
aids
things
or
that
tools?
You use?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the question is, practice. That's what you do. Focus on practice. Like, so I've been doing this for 56 years. Now, from the time I was about 15 and a half to about 21, I worked at the tea room 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. I did readings every single day. When I was around 21, I knew for certain that this is what I was going to be doing. So what I decided, because I heard that when a young man becomes a priest, they make a vow to do at least, to say a mass every day of their life. So what I did around 21 is I made a vow that I would do a psychic reading every day of my life, whether it was practice or whether it was actually doing the reading. And I made it for about 30 years without missing a day of practice. So, or missing a day of doing readings. And sometimes what I would do, say it was my day off, if somebody just happened to call and they wanted a reading and I hadn't done my practice for the day, they would get a reading right then and there. And I wouldn't charge them because it's always better to do it rather than to practice it. But I didn't miss a day's practice in 30 years. And then I took a day off. And I took a day off because I wanted to know what it was like not to be psychic. So if you want to be good, dedicate yourself.
All right. Arlene says, my sister doesn't necessarily use focus tools, but she does use citrine, crystals, and sage to cleanse her and her space so she can focus clear. Do you use things like that, the crystals and sage and candles and that sort of thing?
I have a couple of things that I do to smudge the room when I do readings. I have several things around that are protections for the energies, and I often clean the environment myself through different meditative ways. That's how I do it. Now, I have a wand. I have a couple other things that I play with. I don't necessarily use them to do readings.
Okay, so Sheila Reynolds is back again. She wants to know, can a dramatic event in your life
Yes.
jumpstart your psychic abilities?
Absolutely. I know of a woman in Australia that I've been mentoring for the last, I think, about a year. Like 8 years ago, she didn't do readings or anything, and I don't know, I think she banged her head or something. I'm not quite sure what the whole detail is. And all of a sudden, she started seeing things and feeling things and going through stuff. And she and I have been working together to help develop that. Mostly, what we've been working on is how to control that, how to be in control of it.
All right. Arlene says, amazing show tonight. Thank you both, but I got to go. Have a blessed night.
Thank you, Arlene. I'm glad you joined us.
All right. So I guess that's it for the questions for now. What kind of advice could you give everybody that is thinking about getting a reading? What are some of the signs they can look for on whether or not the psychic that they're going to see is a fraud? Are there warning signs? Like,
okay, so you touched on it on a touchy subject here, fraud. In my life, and I've been around for a few years, and 56 of the years that I've been around psychic things. I have met very few real frauds. There are some, very few. Most people that do this work believe they're doing a service, they're giving service to people kind, they're helping. Most people believe that. The difference, though, is not everybody can play basketball in the NBA. Not everybody gets to play in the National League or the American League. Not everybody becomes a gold medal winner. So there are the really good ones, and then there are the ones that aren't so good, and then there are some that are really lousy, and they're shitty at the job. Okay, that it doesn't make them a fraud. Now, what is a fraud? A fraud is somebody that sets out to steal or take something from you in an immoral way, stealing. It has nothing to do with being psychic. Now, every psychic that I've ever known as well, including me, and I brag about all the number of readings that I've done and, yada, yada, yada. And one of the questions was, if anyone ever says, have you been wrong? I think, oh, shit, you have no idea. Of course I have. So when I am being brilliant for one person, and then I do a lousy reading for another person because I'm having an off day or whatever, I'm having an off day, I'm not a fraud. But often somebody will say, oh, yeah, that Robert Lindsy Milne, he did a reading for me, and he's a fraud. It wasn't any good. The way I solve that problem, incidentally, is that when I do a reading for somebody, from the moment I finish the reading and until the ending of my life or theirs, I guarantee my work 100%. Absolutely. And if I ever do a reading for somebody and they feel at any point in time that the service that I gave them was not of the value that they were expecting, then I give them back their money. And it doesn't matter if it was yesterday I did their reading or whether it was 40 years ago. The only difference is they don't get like if I did a reading for them 40 years ago, I'm not giving them back the money I pay. You would pay for a reading today. I would give them back their principal.
all right. Heather Gillette has a follow-up question. She says, so you think the shuttlecraft that came to me outside of Edmonton, that thing took me for a minute?
About an hour. We're just outside of Edmonton, Heather. Oh, she's not. I'm sorry. I keep thinking I'm talking to her. I'm sorry, man.
well, I mean, she'll answer, I'm sure, here in just a minute.
It was about an hour, it was about an hour and a half. You were drugged or put into a uncontrolled altered state.
Okay. Do you have a question for her? Because she can answer.
Pardon?
Did you have a question for her? Because she'll answer it in the. She
I
was in
can't
Thorsby, Alberta. She said.
Thorsby? Okay. I'm not quite sure where that is. Anyway, yeah, they took you away for about an hour. What happened is they froze time, or everybody that would be around you didn't realize it.
All right. Will M says, "Can I ask a question?" Yeah, you can, man. Just put it down in the.
Yeah. Besides that, what would you like to ask?
Yeah. All right. So.
This is fun.
Yeah, Heather says she wants to come see you, but she doesn't need to come see you. You can talk on Skype, right? A
lot of my work now is done via Zoom, radio, or in person. I'm in Toronto, so I haven't been to Edmonton for a pretty long time, Heather. Although I was on Ched a whole lot. I was a lot of stations in Edmonton. Went there a lot.
All right. So, she was the one.
So now I'm in Toronto mostly, but you can contact me. You can look up Robert Lindsy Milne. You'll find me.
Yeah, the link is down in the description box below, and you can send him an email. I'm sure.
Fine.
All right. So let's see if anybody else has anything. Yeah, she's talking about the light craft, I guess. Sapphire Elf wants to know, have you ever thought you were reading a person's spirit, but it turned out to be some kind of torpor or doppelganger?
Oh, like in somebody that just came into the body, like a drop-in, something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I've never actually encountered that. That isn't something that I've experienced. Is it possible? Probably, but I haven't actually. I understand the concept. I haven't ever experienced it per se, but it's possible. Well, anything's possible. If you believe something, you can do it. You know, the only reason you can't fly is, now people don't try. The only reason you can't fly is because you believe you can't. That's the only reason. The only reason that you can't walk through a wall is because you believe you can't. As soon as you get to the point, not where you want to believe, but when you believe, you'll be able to you'll be able to do it. So when you set a goal, don't set the goal to what your greatest expectations are. Set the goal to the high level of what you believe you can do, and then you will do it. And then when you do it, add on to let your belief grow some more.
All right. Will M says, I'm working with a healer to help with emotional stuff. Is he the right person for me? I mean, I guess there's no way for you to really tell that, is there?
You're the one that can decide. Is he? Thank you, Will. If you feel like your emotions are getting balanced, now, just because you're doing work with somebody to heal the emotional stuff, and when you're doing the work, sometimes you'll get messed up and have, you'll backslide. But part of the growth is doing that and then growing some more. If you're feeling fulfilled or safe and secure with this healer, then this is the healer for you. If you are feeling uncomfortable from what you're getting from the healer, then this isn't the healer for you. It's and before you leave that healer, another one will appear, probably in November.
All right. Grendel0706 says, so is my wife going to die from this cancer? And I would imagine.
I'm sorry. Can I just interject?
Yeah.
I really couldn't answer such a question and feel comfortable just by looking at letters on the screen. I would never do such a thing one way or the other. I would have to be able to connect and sense the energy from your wife. I am profoundly sorry that you're going through this, and I really do send my love and healing to both you and your wife, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, I knew that those were the type of questions you wanted me to avoid, but I didn't want to ignore him on the channel, and
Oh, thank you.
wanted to outreach myself that,
Thank
you
you.
know,
Thank you.
all of us here are going to pray for you guys, and
You got it, my friend.
hopefully your wife pulls through just fine. So, I guess we're out of time.
Really?
Yeah,
Already? I just started.
it seems like it goes so fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: do you
Yes.
know who Corn Pop is?
No, who is that? I know popcorn. I eat a lot of that.
Corn Pop is a bad dude.
No, really. Then I don't want to meet him.
Let me ask you this: have you done readings with possibly more than one entity in the body?
I've never experienced anything quite like that.
All right.
I haven't had that experience.
All right.
Or I'm consciously aware of it anyway.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm reading the comments. We ask every guest that comes on the show the Corn Pop question, and it's always the last question. Some people know that Corn Pop's a bad dude, and some people don't. I think they take bets before the show on
really
on whether or not somebody's going to know who he is or not. So
I've never heard of Corn Pop.
All right. Well, you know what? That's probably a good thing. You don't watch too much TV.
I haven't been doing a lot of that lately. One of the things I don't do is watch the news anymore.
Yeah.
And the reason for it is there's nothing I can do other than get messed up.
Do you have a feeling of complete dishonesty in the world today? I mean, is everything we're seeing on the news like total BS or what?
There are no absolutes. Anything is possible. Are there bad things going on in the world? Absolutely. Are there good things going on in the world? Absolutely. What you focus to feel and do is what you choose to how you feel. Choosing to be happy, choosing to be sad. It's your choice. I saw blood and guts and gore in TV and things over the years, and it stimulates me and keeps me going and stuff like that. It doesn't help me help the client in front of me. Getting upset doesn't help me give service to the wounded person I'm helping. It's better for me to be feeling good, feeling positive, seeing the positive side of the world, to give service to those that are injured. That's how it works for me.
All right. Antonio says, love Conflict Radio and all the crazy people in here. Thanks, Robert Milne. Very interesting.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I'm glad you connected with me.
All right. You want to tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. And you can also find me on my new podcast, and that podcast is called My Side of the Crystal Ball.
All right, awesome. And I have the links to the YouTube channel, guys, if you want to go down and subscribe. Remember, if you want to talk to Robert, his webpage is down in the description box below as well. Yes. Just make sure you go down there, and you can send him an email, and you don't ignore emails, right? You can they can put
anybody that contacts me, I get back in touch with them. It might not be right away. It might not be a day. I'll be back to you, though. I always get back to you. I always do.
All right. Awesome. So keep that in mind, guys. Robert, hang on for just a minute. Let me wrap this up, and I'll chat with you a little bit off the air. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming in and participating in the show, answering the questions and stuff. Remember, we do normally go live on Mondays and Thursdays and every other Wednesday. Now that's how we're doing it. It's 2 shows, 3 shows, 2 shows, 3 shows. There were supposed to be 3 shows this week, but I actually had cancellations for both Wednesday and Thursday. So I think that I'm going to try to get somebody on. If I can't, then we'll pop in here Thursday and at least do open lines and chat with everybody. And maybe we can talk about what you guys want to talk about if I can't get a guest. Remember, you can always find us online. Just go to www.conflictradio.net. You can join our Discord group. The invite link is in the description box below. You can always find us on Apple, iTunes, Spreaker, and all of your normal podcast catchers. If you are listening on the podcast, I guess we actually just broke 10,000 downloads last week. That's just for 1 week. Guys, that's incredible. I cannot believe I got 10,000 downloads in 1 week. That's insane. It's the first time we've done that. I guess the next milestone is 20, right? Like, I mean, this show is growing like crazy. Thank everybody for the super chats. Really do appreciate it. This show is getting a lot of support, and really want to thank you all. You know, the best way to support this show and get something for it is to check out our store. I mean, buy a coffee cup or a T-shirt or a hoodie. It's starting to get cold. You know, I think the hoodies are really cool. But I got to admit that the pockets kind of suck. But the hoodies are actually really cool, so definitely check those out. Other than that, we will be back on Thursday, hopefully, with a guest. If not, we're going to do open lines. We'll be here Thursday at 7:30 Eastern Time. And if you want to be a part of that show, just be in the YouTube channel, Conflict Radio. You can find it that way. And that's how you participate in the live shows on YouTube. Until next time, everybody, batten down the hatches and be safe.